Thanks so much, everyone. Today's a special one for me, love languages. Many of you are familiar with that. If you're not, you will be by the end of today. But one of the things that is really exciting for me is to show you how to take this great thing about love languages and convert it into something that is a written plan for the family to get around, but you're energizing the family because you're focusing them on a love language. Even with my own sons, I have twin boys, the love languages when they were younger was more physical touch, but as they've gotten older, it's been more special outings or acts of service. And so if I hadn't changed my parenting to fit that new love language, I would miss out on a whole opportunity to connect with them. And with trauma, especially today, the anti-venom or antidote to trauma is attachment. And so this is a big one today. In fact, it's like someone said to me, if you had to pick out some of the golden keys in your model of family systems trauma, would you list this as one of those? And I would say definitely yes, because since love languages has been an integral part of this model, you're going to see in this video clip that was taped in September how it really changed the whole dynamics of the family. So with that, I wanted to get started. And like Allison said, put your questions in as they come up, or comments. We'll collect them at the end. We'll have we'll stop at the hour, but I may stay a little bit longer to answer questions. But sit back and enjoy, because you'll also get a copy of this PowerPoint slide deck. So you don't have to take, copious notes. It'll be sent to you along with the recording. Those of you who are watching on demand, welcome as well. Those of you who have not met me before, I'm Dr. Scott Sells. And like I said, what is important about today is you've got these three golden keys: love languages, and then I'm going to show you how to take those love languages and segue into FST undercurrents and what we call trauma playbooks. And then next month, we're doing the motivational technique. Last year, we had over 1,000 people for this webinar. And so these three keys are really going to increase the odds of engagement with your family. And so for those of you who really like this one, please save the date for March 20th. Register now or later, but that'll be the motivational technique that'll segue nicely with this technique that we're talking about with love languages, undercurrents, and trauma playbooks. So when I started this with my team, this book came out, about 2 or 3 years ago. After 10 years of research and working with families, usually what's called grounded theory, my goal is to really help communities master these techniques in the book, because a lot of us don't do family therapy today or couples work. And so I want to give you the confidence. And today's technique is going to be the trauma playbook, but I also want to give you a little bit of a bonus one as well. This one is also going to be talking about how do we combine love languages with the extended family. I would contend the extended family is one of the most underutilized parts of the healing process. And in this case, I'm talking about the extended family, not just aunts and uncles, but we're broadening our focus to the community. This family that you'll see is extremely isolated and has been in Livingston for 3 years and has just done homeschooling. And that's one of the things that's causing so much trauma is the isolation. So I want to include what it looks like to include the extended family, i.e. the community. So we're going to add number 10 today and number 6 as an overview highlight. So here's my pinky promise to you, is that when you leave here, 3 takeaways. 1, You'll really know what love languages are if you don't already know. Two, this is the big one, how to convert love languages into a FST trauma playbook. Some people call it a written treatment plan. I use the word playbook because it was a metaphor I saw with football teams, how they would go in and have a playbook so that everybody knew what their role was, what the play was, and so it's the same thing, but I use the word playbook. And then folks have been asking me, how do I learn all these techniques with confidence in a very easy way? I want to go more in depth. And some of you who are watching today, this is a great overview, but you may want to go deeper. So let's talk about Hunter. Hunter is 15 years old. Actually, that's a misprint. It's 12. Sorry about that. What's great about this family is sometimes you see a family growing up. When you use FST or other models you work with, you can get the initial behavioral symptoms going, what I'm going to call these undercurrents that are driving the symptoms. In this case, for Hunter, when I first saw them, they had a lot of what's called misuse of power, where the parents were not able to set limits consistently. There was empty threats. There was a lot of drama, which equals trauma. There was a lack of nurturance, and you're going to see this actual first generation of interventions with Hunter that actually was leading him to lying. And it was getting to the point when they first contacted me, where the parents were like, he's telling the teachers that we're doing abuse. And we found out later that Hunter was just trying to really get attention. And so you're going to see in this case, a year later, the family comes back. And if you do a really good job, the family is like, you told us at the end of our first round that we could do tune-ups and we don't have to go into full-blown treatment necessarily. So the family calls me up a year later and says, we've got other situations, which I'll tell you about in a moment, that has led to problems. And so the other thing that the family's going through is they have a special needs, or Hunter has a special needs brother. The parents are not on the same page. The village is not engaged, and there's emotional disconnection. So years later, the father decides he wants to take an online course. This triggers an imbalance in the family. They were already stretched so thin. The special needs brother, Sam, gets bullied in school, so the parents take the kids out of school and they're doing a homeschooling. So a year later, all these other stressors are happening. And so they call me and say, could you see me? So you're going to see part 2 a year later. We're always trying for lowering recidivism, where what our goal is that we want the family, individual or couple, to stay changed permanently, which is second order change, not just temporary change. So you're going to see a year later here. So let's go to takeaway number 1. What are love languages? And we're going to pair this with this case. So most of you are familiar with this book. If you haven't, I recommend it. 5 Love Languages of Children. There's 5 Love Languages of Couples and Individuals. But when I read this book, I was like, when I first read it, I was like, this is great, but how do I take the love languages and convert them to something in treatment that would be very useful? So it's like you have one piece of the puzzle, but you need the other piece to kind of pull it together. So fast forward, and I look at these love languages. There's 5: receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. And like I said, the child's love language will often change as the child grows and changes. And there's also love languages for parents as well as couples and individuals. So I'll talk about that in a second. But while we are focused on the love language for Hunter, there was also love languages for the parents as well. So the second takeaway is, how do we convert these into a FST trauma playbook? Well, like when you're baking a cake, you have ingredients. flour mixed with baking soda, mixed with chocolate chips, makes chocolate chip cookies, but the cookies don't happen unless you mix them together in the right mixture. So the first thing with Hunter's case was determining the client's love language using what's called a love language online quiz that Gary Chapman allows us to use. And so what I do when I'm moving in the direction of a playbook, and this happened in round one with Hunter's family, is I had the parents either do the love languages in my office or do it as homework and send it to me. But the nice thing about this quiz is it's for teenagers, children, parents, adults. And so this is Hunter's love language. It prints out a really nice graphic interface. And we see here that Hunter's love language is words of affirmation, followed by a close second, receiving gifts and quality time, and acts of service and physical touches in the lower end. So again, I used to give parents interventions just like out of, instinct, but it wasn't necessarily matching up with the love language because that wasn't part of my DNA as a counselor in the beginning. And I've even used it for my own son. And you'll see 2 Christmases ago, my son and I we got dinners ready for Christmas for the homeless. And you could see his face where I'm hitting on acts of service and quality time. So, this, again, I'm not just a proponent of it, but I've used it with my own family as well. So the second ingredient is, okay, now that we have the quiz, what do we do with it? How do we match the love language to a best fit intervention? And we're going to talk about this next golden key, which is what is a healthy undercurrent and how is the love language, like chemotherapy, to target a missing healthy undercurrent that's actually causing the problems with Hunter that he's experiencing. So here, again, for the sake of time, just giving a quick overview, with the family in phase 2, when they come back to me a second time, a year later, we have some of the line, although it's not been extreme, but Hunter's now developed anxiety. A lot of that's been like it's a pressure cooker with the homeschooling. There's extreme sadness because his biological father is kind of like exited out of his life or been more inconsistent since a year ago. His stepdad and biological mom are having stress because of stepdad's decision to do online schooling. Fighting is more intense as they're kind of in a pressure cooker together. So they acknowledge that these are the apples of the tree. And then when I asked them as kind of to be like co-Sherlock Holmes, for them to work with me and identify what are the top 2 toxic seeds that are unseen to the naked eye that are causing the root cause of these traumatic symptoms that are actually making these seeds toxic. And this is what we call undercurrents or roots. So for sake of time, and I'm going to identify what is the main toxic seed that's producing the extreme sadness, the anxiety, the lying. Well, the family identifies that it's around unhealed wounds and their associated undercurrents. So we give the family, and you would too, a handout that defines the toxic seed. But the most important juice or mojo of this exercise is to look at the unhealthy undercurrents on the left, and that they help identify themselves, and the healthy undercurrents on the right, which is really important for you as the coach or therapist, because you want to fill in what's missing. So a year later, the family says, this is where we're at. Hunter and Sam and Bella, especially Hunter, is experiencing this abandonment from biological dad. Uh, Gene, the stepfather, the kids feel a little bit abandoned because the dad is working all the time, the stepdad. The time he has left over used to be a year ago for special outings, but now it's for schooling. Mom is like exhausted from homeschooling and says to her husband, Gene, will you help me out? And he's like, I'm checking out. I can't even handle this. So this feedback loop is going on where Hunter and the other two siblings are feeling this tremendous sense of emotional abandonment. So my job is, how can we get unconditional love back into the system? Because otherwise there's no reason for the symptoms to go away. The other thing they talk about is, yes, nurturance has taken a hit. A year ago, we worked really hard with the intervention I'm about to show you called the Positive Hunter Report. That was a catalyst to get us going. But that we stopped doing that. It's kind of worn out. It hasn't become a new normal like we thought it was going to be. And also, we're just grieving the loss of what we used to have as a family. And we're off kilter again because of these developmental stressors of Gene going to school, the stepfather, homeschooling being kind of a pressure cooker, and the family being isolated. So one of the things that you'll do in this model is you'll create like a summary cheat sheet where you condense all the assessment data into a simple table, which focuses them and you like a laser beam. So the symptoms, the identified patient is Hunter, but his siblings are also having similar problems. So we're really focused on anxiety, sadness. It's brought a tremendous lack of confidence and self-worth, which has created this undercurrent of tension. The unhealthy undercurrents that are driving these symptoms, betrayal and abandonment, like I described with the biological dad kind of exiting stage right, Gene, the stepfather, shutting down with schooling, and there's grief. So the healthy undercurrents that I have to go for, which I know where to tap, is consistent nurturance and healing this grief. What's incredible is people will travel all over the world to Mayo Clinic because they're known as like one of those places that if you can't find out where to tap or what the diagnosis is, they can do it through careful testing and doctors that are specialists. Well, families love this model, especially in the times that we're living in now when they're in constant crisis, because this is very logical for them. And watch their body language as this goes up on the screen for them to see. They get energized because I'm not only connecting the undercurrents, but I'm connecting it to the love language. So I reframe this as that my job is that we're going to fill in these missing healthy undercurrents, but with Hunter's love language of special, outings, and also the contention of words of affirmation. So I'm going to, in the part one, a year earlier than this video that you're going to see, Gene has had a struggle as a stepfather to connect with Hunter. So words of affirmation are taken back then, a year ago. And I say to the family that in between sessions, I went to my cookbook, the analogy of a cookbook, and I looked at, in chapter 8, the cookbook recipe for the issue of betrayal or abandonment, where I knew that I had these recipes to choose from, and I chose strengthening family connections. And the love language of words of affirmation were my main target, and quality time was going to be later on. So I know that I want to partner the love language with the technique, which is used as chemotherapy or RX prescription like amoxicillin, if you would, or a Z-Pak, to put in the healthy undercurrent because it's not going to happen by its own by osmosis. One of my mentors, Jay Haley, said if the family could put their healthy undercurrents in by themselves, they wouldn't be in your office. Especially today, they want a therapy of action in the here and now, not as much how do you feel in times of crisis, but what do we do? So, X's and O's of the trauma playbook. So, it's very simple. I used to give people verbal interventions, but now it's broken down into who's involved in the intervention, when is it going to occur, where is it going to occur, and what is the intervention going to be? And for me, the intervention is going to be around the love language, because why would I pick an intervention around connections of hugs or something like that when Hunter's love language is words of affirmation? So the RX prescription or the playbook is designed to inject into the bloodstream the missing healthy undercurrent to realign the family structure. Now, this is why I love this model, and it's so fun because I get to be like Thomas Edison in the laboratory, where I get to take the recipe cookbook, look at the family's undercurrents, and make a customized cocktail with the family, in this case, or you could do it with an individual or couple that's matching the love language with the intervention. I might even be a little bit off, but I'm still moving the family in the right direction. So here's what happens. So one of the interventions in the book is called a positive child report, or helping the caregivers catch the child doing something right instead of catching the child doing something wrong. Now, the feedback loop had been with Gene, the stepfather, is he was an expert at catching Hunter doing something wrong and never using like, I'm proud of you or good job, Hunter. Which if I'm a kid like Hunter, that's going to spur me to lie to get attention, because if I can't get positive attention, I'm going to get negative attention. And so here's what I gave the father, Gene. I said, even if this doesn't feel right, would you do an experiment or fake it till you make it? And so here's was the positive Hunter report. And we did dress rehearsals, because one of the techniques in this model is you can't just give somebody an intervention. You got to pretend to be the child and take the family through, dress rehearsals, just like a director would do an actor. So here's what it looked like. The positive Hunter report. When was it going to be? 1 or 2 times a day. Now, I give this as a draft to the family. They can change it. They can tweak it. But it's not just a blank piece of paper. We actually have something as a sample. And then where was it? And look at the undercurrents, I say to the family. I always connect the playbook to a higher calling, which is the undercurrent that we're targeting. So it takes the focus off of Hunter of just fix the kid to now let's fix the undercurrent. Where is it going to be? I try to get playful with the stepfather. Would you put it underneath the pillow? Would you give him a stuffed bear? Would you do it in a backpack? Would you write on the mirror, like with a wax pen from Michael's? And then I say, here's the warning labels that we're going to do. Hunter may be scared. This is normal. He might not appreciate it. It's going to be awkward for you, Gene, the stepfather. But can you commit to 30 days? Well, this intervention sets the family in the right course. And a year later, like I said, they come back to me and say, we're a little bit off course. So now let's watch the video of this part 2, where now we're dealing with anxiety, extreme sadness, and extreme lying. And we're going to be targeting this. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing is, okay, we have some of the same undercurrents and some of the different ones. And so in this case, I'm looking at my playbook again, and I'm thinking to myself, Okay. Hunter also put down special outings as a close second. And we even redid the quiz and it came up. And he misses special outings with his father, stepfather, Gene. And isn't special outings going to be an anti venom to betrayal and abandonment? Yes. So here you're going to see in the video, I say to the family, could we have a joy squad? Where outside the home, there's this community that's got this unrealized potential as my co-therapist because you guys are isolated. Your extended family is in 3 states away. And then we can also partner with the Joy Family Squad, but let's focus on the Joy Community Squad. And let's use the Joy Squad to help us with the unhealthy undercurrents of nurturance and unresolved grief. So I show the family an ego map. I say to them, you'll see in the video in just a second, there's all these people around you. But for a lot of reasons, you have not engaged them and you've gone more and more isolated. So let's focus on the extended family. So here, the families now very much trust me because I had success a year ago. So I can parlay that to be more what's called a systems irritant. I can irritate and push the system towards these healthy undercurrents. And so I have a logical explanation as to why, because everybody wants to know what's in it for me to have the village involved. I need you to be trauma informed before you go to trauma responsive. So let's watch the video. One of the things you said to me early on was like, sometimes it's us against the world. Sometimes we don't really have extended family close by. We don't have babysitters. We're all kind of alone. And when that happens, stress rises. Look at all the things around you. I'm doing family therapy. There's friends, extended family, basketball club. These are just examples. I thought to myself, if I, in a short time, could give you guys a great victory on activating the village in this town, because this village has got so much potential. There's so many people in this town that care about other people. They just need a clear roadmap. So they buy into that. They're curious. They're intrigued. And so I put this on the board and I say, look, this is what it would look like. The Joy Squad. And this fits Hunter's, love language around special outings with the community. So they're curious. And I bring with me a sample playbook. And I say to them, here's what it looks like. This would be, again, we're activating the Joy Squad to help Hunter, Sam, and Bella heal sadness, grief, and tension. Our wonderful town of Livingston, it's always good to have a preamble in your playbook, has wonderful people, and people, when given a chance, see it as an honor and privilege to bring joy to you. And light dispels stress and replaces it with happiness and joy. So I have 2 people. You're only going to see one. In later videos, you'll see Suzanne Robertson, the artist, but Rod, who is the owner of Treasure Lane, comes in. And watch what a beautiful job he's going to do, because he's going to be my co-therapist. And the family gives me permission to show this video because they said, we want to help as many people as we can out there today. And Rod comes in and surprises the family. They don't know he's coming. And I could put Rod on speakerphone if I needed to, or on Zoom. I get the family's permission. And so here, watch the interaction that takes place as I show the family before Rod comes into the room, what this playbook is, how does it fit the healthy undercurrents, and what the village is, so I connect the dots before Rod comes in from the bowling alley. Let's watch. So what I decided to do creatively is I wanted to attack anxiety, sadness, lack of confidence, tension in Sam, Hunter, and Bella. And this is what I want to do. I want to take these unhealthy undercurrents, or whatever you call them. I think there's been some grief too, because people have come in and out of their lives, their dad. And I just think you all have had some tough times. So I'm going to do, the first one is inside the home and outside the home. I'm going to call it the Joy Squad. And so this is, don't look at the second page, but let's just look at the first one. This is the first plan. Look at my RX prescription. Instead of for strep throat, I'm going to have special outings of joy, the Joy Community Squad, and I'm also going to talk about the group hug as the Joy Family Squad. So look at this here. We have 2 visitors today. Rod is in charge of treasure lanes. And a birdie told me that you guys might like to learn bowling and have fun with it. The birdie was your mom. And so Rod said, I would love to do some individual bowling lessons with them so they feel really confident. And he did that with my son, David. And then if you guys like bowling, you could all have a chance to join the league with other kids. My son was like, I don't know, and he did it 4 times. That's what we negotiated, an experiment, and he loved it. So I wanted to have the Rod come in. He's taking his day off just for you guys to come in and tell you about the bowling, ask questions. But I just think you guys, it's great if you let us support you. You have been through so much. Sometimes it's good to put the sails down and let other people who really want to care, let them care. When you look at Mom's face here, she's about to cry. And I almost cry at this point too. Because what happens is that a lot of the battle is sometimes won before the first shot is ever fired. So I have, and this is why if you want to go deeper in this model, you can really get confidence without having to go back to graduate school like I had to do, because this model is very step by step. But I had all the, the right, assessment data to create this chocolate chip cookie for this family. I had, the seed tree diagram that helped me know what the toxic seeds were, what the families help. I could zero in on the right unhealthy and healthy undercurrents. I had the love language quiz that allowed me to know I'm in the right ballpark with the special outings. The model also helps me understand the importance of the extended family. I'm a social worker, and we can use wraparound on steroids, but give clarity of roles. The family has a written playbook connected to a higher calling. So, and this is done with before they even walk in the room. I talk to the mom. I said, what are the kids like? What do you think about this? Sometimes I show it to them for the first time, but I always hold it loose in my hand. I'm like, what do you guys think? But when you hit the right love language, it's like an oil driller hitting a geyser, and the oil just like this. And so, again, sometimes we have to think outside the box because our families are so stuck that the beauty of this is that families will do well if they can. But we have to give them, especially in today's world, step by step of how to, because they're always going to ask the question, now what? What are you going to do in the here and now to give us something? And it can be small, but families that in crisis run to the light, they just don't walk. So now watch the reaction of the family as this lovely, wonderful man named Rod comes in. He's been doing bowling leagues for the community. He works with kids, he works with, adults, but watch how he becomes the co-therapist to unstick this system. It's just really an honor to be part of this. I don't know. I get really excited to share this with you because this is kind of cool. Okay, so here's the plan, and let's watch what happens and the energy in the room change when we get to this point. Let's watch. Would you introduce yourself to everybody? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Hunter. I've actually been bowling before.
Have you?
With my dad.
Have you been bowling in Livingston or just?
No.
No?
It was before we ever moved here.
Okay, well, I'm Rod. Good to meet you, Hunter.
How old are you?
About to turn 12.
12. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Bella?
My name's Bella. I never really been bowling before.
You haven't been bowling before?
Once.
Yeah?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Would
Okay.
you be open to trying it?
Yeah?
Yeah, so I'm Bella, I'm Rod. Good to meet you.
Okay, and
Sabina.
What's the name?
Sabina.
Sabina. Good to meet you, Sabina.
I'm Gene.
Gene. Good to meet you, Gene.
Yep, and I'm Scott. Okay. So what I thought, guys, is that Rod represents part of the Village Joy Squad. And as you can tell, Rod brings joy to so many kids. I had an interesting idea as you were telling me about your whole resume of bowling, which was cool. Would there be an option if it was planned? I know you're busy, but maybe it might be a lunch hour or whatever, because one of the advantages of you guys being in homeschooling is you can actually show up when it's not the busy time.
Absolutely.
And would it be cool to have, Rod and you come together and work with the kids to teach bowling?
Only if I'm involved.
Okay, all three. So would that be possible as you kind of lead, that we have the parents there also showing as well?
Absolutely. I think, that's, I think that, for now and, for the future, I could see, being a family endeavor,
Here's what I was going to ask as we bring this to a close. It's always good to have a date and a time to get a goal to go. I know you guys don't have your calendars with you, but would there be a time next week that you guys could get together and take pictures so I can see it, where you guys are bowling and I want to see Bella's face and like that. Could you guys, just as a gift, would you guys set a date and a time and try it out? Now, do you know this? A family that bowls together stays together.
I don't think that's true.
It's true. It's a slogan. It's true.
What about bowling pins?
So we see the energy change. I love that. A family that bowls together stays together. And you can see that when you can see the oil geysers start to come up. Look at the energy level of the family change and the hope. And so look at the picture. They sent me the picture. They're bowling together. Quality time is hitting on the right cylinder. I want to really talk about the 2 points really to ponder. One is, as we start to bring this to a close and then have time for questions, we may even get out early today. But the first point is that love languages plus trauma playbooks get your traumatized clients and families unstuck with the smallest possible healthy undercurrent change. In this case, the family starts to bowl during Gene's lunch hour. Gene starts to tell me, I realize that I can't just keep doing schooling and, not be there for the family. I can't check out. The marriage starts to get better again. And you'll hear the mom make this comment at the end of, it brings us back to where we were as a family. It's the smallest possible change. That's why I love systems theory, because when you throw a pebble in a pond, it ripples out to other things. I didn't even do marital work, and the marriage was getting better. The second one that I want you to ponder today is that after the intervention that works, that's tied to the love language, the knee bone is connected to the thigh bone, etc. Clients have a simultaneously hopeful shift in emotions, insight, and behavior. And sometimes clients have to act their way into a new way of thinking. This is why people tell me all the time, this is a great model that's a complementary fit to another model of change I like, which is trauma-focused CBT. What you're doing, Scott, is you're changing the dance systemically through these playbooks, but it's changing the cognitions. So I was always taught the first way to change someone who's stuck is to get them to think their way into a new way of acting, which was insight treatment. But a less known way that's equally powerful is to get people to act their way into a new way of thinking. So when you get resistance from people saying, I don't buy what you're selling, I don't think I can do it, I'm like, that's okay. Would you do an experiment? Because I know that cognitions, or where the mind goes, the person follows. So if I can't change the mindset through talk therapy, what I have in my toolkit is to be able to change people's thought life by acting their way into a new way of thinking. That blew my mind, that I could blend cognitive behavioral therapy seamlessly with systems work. And to me, it catapulted practice with these very, very difficult, complex trauma families. So don't take my word for it. Let's watch Sabina's comment, because I asked the family, with everything we did today, what was most helpful? What was your biggest takeaway? I think we need to ask our clients that question, in the last 5 minutes of a meeting. What was most helpful? What was least helpful? So let's watch this part here, and then we'll have time for question and answer. So I hope that you guys have some, if you're thinking about questions, put them in right now in the chat bar, so we can have some lively discussions about this. But let's go to what Sabina says, that the smallest possible healthy undercurrent is a hopeful shift for her. Let's watch. Anything else that was helpful?
Just having a little faith restored in the sense of community.
Yeah.
We've never, ever, since becoming a mother, and so 15 years almost now, I've never, ever had a support system like that.
Yeah. I loved when you said you're like my extended family.
You really are.
That was so cool.
And to hell with extended, it's the family.
Yeah. Family is not just biological. So for me, that was huge. She said, to hell with community, this is my family. And for a mom that is burnt out and overwhelmed in homeschooling, is isolated. Heck, the bowling alley was only a block away from their home. And you didn't see this in the edited version, but Rod's like, have you guys been to the bowling alley? And no. Where do you live? 2 blocks down. How long have you lived here? 3 years. And he's like, really? But it's so true today. Mental illness is often a byproduct of what happened with COVID, where more and more people are isolating themselves. So this catalyst changed her thinking and also brought hope floats. And so as we end today and then go into Q&A, I hope that I did a good job. Maybe if you could put yes in your chat bar, if I kept my pinky promise to you, do you leave here going, yes, Scott, in only an hour, less than an hour, I definitely know what love languages are. I definitely have some really good tools to convert love languages into a trauma playbook. And then if you really want to go to the next step and learn, I want to learn all of these. One of the things that I have added this year, because I heard people say, I like your self directed 12-week course once a week over 12, 13 weeks. But I also was wondering if you could teach these 12 techniques in a 3-day live virtual masterclass. So I listened to you. So Allison will put this on the board, but you can easily just take your phone and, scan this upper left hand, QR code. But the course is still the course. I developed it right before COVID and it's had really good success. Now, this year, same techniques, but people are said, I have a need for speed, like Top Gun. So they're like, I want the 3-day live. And then they also like when I do special webinars on special topics like how do you apply FST to anxiety? How do you apply FST to suicidality? How do you apply FST to extreme behaviors? So whatever growth path you're on, some of you, I'd like to consider, an online course that I can go to 24/7, have coaching office hours every 3 weeks. Some folks want the next class actually for this one is going to be March 27th through 29th. And then some people want the on demand. And so the next one that's open to the public is the 27th through the 29th. And I also want to get a shout out is next week I'm doing a master class because I also teach agencies. So raise your hand if you're from the Elizabeth Layton Center in Kansas. I will see you guys next week because Elizabeth Layton Center is embarking in the journey to we want to become a family trauma center of excellence. So raise your hand if you're from the Elizabeth Layton Center. I wanted to surprise you with a shout out to you. And then also Bergen's Promise in New Jersey is decided in January, March. They want to go ahead and do the 14-week or 12-week course. So I want to give a shout out to the folks from Bergen's Promise. So I want to just say thank you today. I hope today was just exciting for you. If you have any information or if you're part of an agency that said, I think, we might be interested in becoming a family trauma center of excellence, please just email us. But for now, let me take an open mic for questions or comments today about what you saw. And I thank you for showing. I see the chat bar. People like this. And Alexander said, I'm going to let my agency know. Great. So any questions, Allison, or comments that people said during our time together today?
Yes, Dr. Sells. Alexandra was stating that they work with the LGBTQIA plus community or populations and was wondering how to use this where parents are open to helping but are resistant to their kids being non-normative on the low end to outright bigoted to their kids' evolution of identity, because both reactions can be traumatic to kiddos.
Yeah, you've got to divide and conquer there. We've got to take the parents through the stress chart. Then the next technique is what you saw, the apple tree. And at that point, you can't out-talk them, out-rationalize them. They're too emotionally charged on an issue, in this case, sexual identity, to hear you. But you can say to them, you love your child or love your young adult. What do you have to lose to experiment with something to connect with them? You may not agree on this particular issue, but you can agree on, do you love this person? Do you want, and I even say, some of the highest suicide rates are for folks that feel like they're not accepted. So I take it from the angle of, experimentation, and I don't get into debates. And people will often say, yeah, what do I have to lose? And then from that position, you have ground to go, further. But you have to have a beachhead before you can, like in the war, the beaches of Normandy, you had to have a beachhead before you can go across Europe. So that's how I would approach that. Great question. Next question.
Okay, and Karen asks, what do you do if you ask someone to do an experiment and they say no, they're not willing?
Then you say the implications and connect it to the undercurrent. And you say to them, maybe you need to go out, or you can find other counselors. But if I can make some predictions I think might happen, but I respect it. But I often say, could we at least try it out with some dress rehearsals? What do you have to lose? And I usually, if I can get the dress rehearsals going, I can get them more into the buy-in. But at the end of the day, if I work harder than my client does, I fail. So I say to them, the door is always open for these undercurrents. And I hand them the cheat sheet that you saw on the screen and say, if you've got a better way to get these healthy undercurrents going, then go for it. But if these healthy undercurrents do not take place within this time period, these symptoms over here are going to get worse. And if my predictions come true, would you call me up and I'll never say to you, I told you so. So again, you're leaving people with the ability to save face, because I've had many clients say, I'm not ready. And I've even had some people say, this brings up that I can't do these undercurrents because I have a chemical addiction myself. And so we have to hit the pause button on FST until that parent gets help with the addiction that is disabling them from even doing the smallest undercurrent shift. However, it leaves them a doorway of hope. So there's many ways to get to Rome, so to speak, many roads to Rome. But this is a catalyst that helps people have a clear vision, a roadmap of where to go, as well as what the love languages potential are to help really get the kid going in the right direction. Next question.
Sure. I've had a couple people chatting to me directly about the trainings. And so I'll answer the question for everyone. Yes, both the FST training that's self-paced online and the FST masterclass, that's the 3-day masterclass with Dr. Sells, both has the same content. So the same FST techniques. It's just one is delivered in a self-paced format, and the other is delivered in a finite time frame of 3 days that you have to be present for. And the second question that I'm getting as well is, yes, they both have CE credits from NBCC and ASWB, both of those as well. And then one more question. Well, actually, we have a couple more questions, and then we are going to close on time at 1, I promise. Dr. Sells, is there a developmental age that the use of the love languages is appropriate?
No, I find it cuts across. I mean, the playbooks, written plan matches the child's, love language. So I've worked with 3-year-olds, for example, that their love language is gifts. And so the family has gone to the dollar store and gotten, small little gifts like we used to get when we had, I'm dating myself, but when I went to the dentist's office, I look forward to the treasure chest at the end of the dentist because I didn't like the dentist, but I liked the little gifts that broke in my hand or that McDonald's has made famous their Happy Meals. So the love language allows you the opportunity to zero in the right direction, north, south, east, west, and then allows you the creative interventions based on the developmental age of the child. And then you have the written plan. So we demonstrate obviously with a 12-year-old, but the same process works with the younger child as well. Great question, by the way. All of them were great.
Yep. So that is all we have time for today. Dr. Sells, everyone loved the dentist treasure box example. They did with that. So just a reminder that everyone will receive a link to the recording tomorrow. And yes, you can share that link as well as the link to our training options, any of that. So with that, Dr. Sells will close out.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing. Thanks again for coming to these webinars monthly and to consider to go deeper if that's your growth path and you want to become confident in this approach. Because I see more and more long wait lists where folks are needing brief strategic interventions to get right to the heart of the matter. But many of us are not confident sometimes doing family work, but we need it now more than ever. So for you to step out and say, I know intuitively, my gut tells me we've got to do both and individual and family work. I commend you because we're in a time like that I've never seen before where it's getting more stressful, not less, and more families are strained. So without you, we have total chaos. So thank you for what you do. I hope and welcome to the Family Trauma Institute family. So if you're not already part of the family, you are now. So thank you all for being here, and I hope to see many of you next month. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye for now.